I will be talking about work in progress. So it's very much more about discussing and seeing whether what we have been thinking about even makes sense. So I'm really looking forward to the discussion, comments, and questions afterwards. This photo is actually from one of the stations where Black Diamond Express stops Kuntala. It was taken, I grew up very close to Dhanbad. I grew up in Bokaro, and I would also take Black Diamond Express and Coalfield Express going from Jharkhand to West Bengal. And this is how you see, this is how coal is transported, open for the fly ash to go around everywhere. And coal is such a visible entity in Jharkhand or in Eastern India, that when you start to think about what would just transition mean, you start to wonder, would it completely change the realities of this region, and what exactly does it mean? The topic that the paper that we have been working on, it's a collaborative paper with 6 other colleagues who I was fortunate to meet as a visiting fellow at the Pufendorf Institute at Lund University last autumn. And we all started thinking that when we're talking about just transitions, what are the counter narratives to the just transition? And what are the ways in which we can understand and question these counter narratives? Because a lot of it works in what we call post-truth now, that things keep being said, but once you start looking at the data, or once you start trying to find evidences, you don't find them. So we thought whether, and all of and in all the conversations that we had from different countries, from different contexts, we started trying to see certain commonalities, and then we wanted to do a collaborative effort with 5 different countries which do not have a lot in common. So the countries were Germany, India, Serbia, South Africa, Mexico. And we picked and chose them and wanted to go deeper into seeing what are the different discourses of climate denialism, what are the different reasons why they say a just transition, or if the transition is even going to be a real transition, or it's just going to be another aspect of greenwashing. And that's how we, in this presentation, I would talk a little bit about the theory, the methodology, and a little bit about the analysis. But the analysis is still a work in progress, so I would not be able to come up with a lot of conclusive findings, let's say. And as a precarious postdoc researcher, I am still affiliated with the University of Antwerp, but I'm currently based in Vienna at the Central European University with funding from Spain at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. So I just put all the different affiliations there. So the 3 main research questions that this collaborative work is trying to look at are, firstly, what are the claims which are brought forward to keep on continuing using coal? And the unit of analysis is national, but then also it goes into regional claims that different districts or different states come up with. And the way to do that is, the way that we wanted to do that is by looking at different gray literature, different policy documents, and conversations with people in these different sectors, in the different stakeholders of coal. And after figuring out what are the different similarities and differences which exist in the discourse of coal phase out in different countries, the final aim of the paper, or the most important research question of the paper, is to see whether these discourses have any real standing, and then to come up with ways in which we can change the current dependence on fossil fuel. I think this was something which both Kuntala and Patrick mentioned before, about how the continued dependence on coal is not going to go away anytime soon. And researchers say this is not an energy transition, but an energy addition. So to try to see how we can change that if we look at all the claims which are stopping for a real transition, but only using renewable energy as addition to the energy mix of each of these countries. So the methodology was that we would start looking at all the documents from the time the word coal phase out started to be used, and see where exactly are the current debates. And once we look at the policy documents, once we look at all the different narratives which are in the current debate, then to show that how are different sectors or different stakeholders talking with each other. And I'll give a couple of examples from India, wherein what is being said by the government is very different from what is being said by the local movements. It's very different from what is being said by bigger NGOs which work on energy transition issues. So what are the ways in which they are different, and what are the ways in which prominence is given to one of these ideas and not to the other? So we also engage a little bit with this idea of hegemony and common sense from the Gramscian terms. So the way we had been collecting data, and so far we have 81 claims from all the 5 countries, is we made this table in which we look at who is saying what exactly is it that they are saying, what are the justice dimensions that they are invoking for need to continue on with more coal, and what are the claims, what are the scales in which they are making these claims. To give one example, and this comes from from 2020, when the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat and opening up more private coal mining in the country came up, which was that we needed for employment and revenue generation. So then we collect the country, the theme, who exactly have been saying it, what are the resources, what are the references for that, and then a final section on, is it really true? Do these claims really hold if we look at the data? And here you can see for this particular claim, it does not hold. This RTI was actually filed by Sandeep Pai when he wanted to see the data which is saying that all these revenue and jobs would be generated. And this doesn't happen very often, that you get an answer to an RTI saying we do not have enough data, or we do not have any report to claim, because generally these realities don't come up. But this was one of the cases in which this post-truth climate crisis politics was very, very obvious. And the theoretical framework that we have been using for this paper is this paper which came up in Global Sustainability called Discourses of Climate Delay. And it was a big collaborative paper written, and they had 4 main discourses of climate delay. First was redirecting responsibility. Next was pushing non-transformative solutions. Third was emphasis on that the change would be disruptive. And fourth was this discourse of surrender, that the change is impossible. And you can have a look at all the different examples of each of these 4 different delays. So what we did in the paper was looking at each of these claims, seeing do they fit into each of these categories, and if they do, which is the one which is more prominent and which is the one which is less prominent. So from the Indian context, and this is still a work in progress, we are still collecting more and more information, we found 5 main findings which puts three of the different discourses very obvious, very visible. The first is the development, which we keep hearing, we need coal for development, we cannot do without coal. This comes more with the discourse of surrender, that change is impossible. India cannot think of developing without coal. Along with that, there is the energy security and revenue generation. This can come both in discourse of surrender and a discourse of change is disruptive, that if we really start to go for a complete transition, then what is going to happen to to all the people who still don't have access to electricity, what is going to happen to the jobs, what is going to happen to the revenue. So we cannot go for a transition because it's too disruptive. And the final one is the discourse of non-transformative solution, which is this technological optimism, that we have these clean coal schemes, and we have these ultra critical thermal power plants. So we are not really harming as much as you think we are. And another claim, which is this commitment to uphold decision, and this you see not in the national level, but more in the regional or local levels, where particular projects which have been conflictive and which have massive mass mobilization behind it and doesn't make sense. If you think of the case of Hasdewaran, they have been fighting for the last 10 years. There is a lot of data which says what it will do to the biodiversity, what would be the rise in the human animal wildlife, human elephant conflicts, what would happen to all the rivers in the state. But yet the reason why they say that no, we still need it here is because this decision was already given, and this coal has to be mined here because we had these commitments and we need to uphold them. So these were more or less the 5 key findings looking at it from the Indian context. And if we keep trying to see what are the similarities and differences with the other 4 countries that we looked at, we could see that this change is impossible and non-transformative solutions. So with this eco-modernist agenda, with clean coal technologies, are the top ones. That's it. This is the crux of my presentation. Thank you.